Welcome to This Week in the PNFL. I'm your host, Mark Hill, and along for the ride, as always, is Mitch Grawl and Dean Chambers. How you doing tonight, fellas?
Oh, fantastic.
All right, and our special guest we have this week, you guys know him, you guys deal with him. He's the one that handles everything, runs all the games, is our co-commish, Rich Colacino. How you doing, commish?
I'm doing good, Mark. I'm glad to be here.
All right. So, week 14 games, we've wrapped those up. We had a couple of overtime games. We're going to go through that. I don't think we really had anything as far as upsets that we're going to go through. But we'll run through all of those. Middle section, today we're going to talk about I guess one of the topics that's been going around on our chat regarding the draft and the players. And then we're going to pivot over to the standings in the playoff race. So you guys are going to get a 2-for-1 today. And then obviously at the end, we're going to go ahead and go through our picks for the week 15 games. So if you guys are all ready, we are going to jump right into it with the first game of the week. We had Jacksonville hosting the New York Giants, and they came up just short, but I'd say it was a pretty good game. But New York ended up taking this one 33-24. We are going to start with Dean this week.
Yeah, hold on a minute. Jacksonville would put on a surprisingly strong performance in this game. They only lost by 9 points. And if you look at the stats are almost even. I don't know if any of us expected. I think Jacksonville, I said in the pregame they're the best 4-10 team in the league, but I think they actually are improved, even though you wouldn't think so based on the number of games they've lost. They've been much closer in many of these games. They've won some games that maybe they weren't predicted to win. So I wouldn't count out the idea that Jacksonville might show some improvement next season. I think they've improved this season, and maybe with some more effort that will lead to more wins next season.
All right. Mitch.
Yeah, Jacksonville, I think, has played better this season for sure, in spite of the record. What killed them this week was turnovers. Had those 2 interceptions, by Jordan Love, and didn't get the ball to George P. George P. only had the 1 reception for 15 yards, and that seems to be a common theme, is that the best players aren't getting the ball enough for Jacksonville to really keep up with the scoring of some of the teams like obviously the Jets. And so until that happens, we're going to continue to see them, I think, lose these close games. But hey, still 2 weeks to kind of get some things going before the off season starts.
All right, Rich.
I'm not sure much what I can add here other than Jacksonville did play very well. The 2 interceptions for 11 points, and there's your game. MVP of the game really was N.J. Stewart in his swan song season with both interceptions for the Jets. But good game for Jacksonville. Dean is right. They are better. Games are competitive. This season's lost, but who knows for next season.
All right. Next up, we have Pittsburgh hosting Indy in a tough rivalry game here, and we have Pittsburgh taking this one 31-17. Mitch.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you'd call it a super performance, but Will Levis, rookie quarterback for Pittsburgh, did win player of the game and throw 4 touchdowns. So congratulations to that first-round pick there for Pittsburgh. So not sure why Levis was starting unless Pittsburgh's just resting up for the playoffs, but they were able to obviously get that 14-point win with those 4 touchdowns by Levis. So, nice job.
All right. Richard.
Colts had this game. They let it slip away. They had a lead in the fourth quarter. 2 killer interceptions for 14 points. They also had a punt blocked for another 3 points. Colts could have won this game. They let it slip away, but Pittsburgh is good. Their secondary continues to play very well, holding them to 50%. But this was a game that the Colts could have won. They let this one slip.
All right, Dean.
Yeah, the Colts were allegedly tanking this game, but Pittsburgh was starting their back at quarterback, so I don't know what the story there is. But yeah, what Rich said was right. Indianapolis could have won this game, and maybe, I don't know, I just know that Tim had posted on WhatsApp that he had, quote, sent in his crap. He used the word crap in reference to his PPPs and kind of emphasized that. So I don't know whether he was just being pessimistic about his chances of winning or if he was tanking, and I don't mean tanking in the Steve definition of the word. So anyway.
Okay. Next game up, we have our first overtime game of this week. We have Atlanta hosting New England, and it took an extra frame, and New England happened to sneak out with a 38-35 victory. Rich.
I think that was the score last year, 38-35. Dean could confirm that or not.
Exactly.
This game was entertaining, but as a former coach, very frustrating to watch because defenses were terrible. They were just awful. And late in the game, I mean, I think I was getting sick watching the Falcons give up a late touchdown with 1:20 left. Falcons completing a 76, they completed a big pass. They score with very little time left. And then New England's back and forth, just giving up touchdowns back and forth. That drives me crazy. I mean, entertaining, but terrible defense. And this is a throwaway if you're a coach of one of these teams.
All right. Mitch.
Oh, sorry, I'm laughing. Anyway, I agree. I mean, the defenses did not show up in this game, and Hendon Hooker got player of the game. I think it's his third one, in his career here, and I guess first full season here as a starter, but. All those stats really didn't mean much because, again, Atlanta went down, and I had picked them to win, but they were not able to pull it out.
All right. Coach, what happened to your team?
Well, the one thing that's kind of amusing about this game is when we started watching the games on Discord last night, and Rich got on with us and told us that Moss had sent a second or third or who knows how many versions of his PPPs. And I'm wondering what is going on.
Did I use the wrong one?
I don't know, but I wonder what he's going to do. I figured he'd send his stuff in and thought, oh, wait a minute, I need to fix this or change that, and then sent another version, and then sent you another version. And I don't know. It's the result kind of doesn't surprise me. I kind of expected something like that. I figured it was going to be a close game. I figured that my offense would do pretty well and that my defense would do pretty poorly, and it kind of went as expected. So I wasn't surprised by it at all. What I was surprised by is that at one point in the first half, I think the score was 21-7 with my team leading. I thought, how is he not scoring on this defense? I knew this defense was suspect. So the second half comeback doesn't surprise me.
Okay. Next up, we have Las Vegas hosting Denver, and definitely Vegas is making some noise. They took this one 21-10. Dean.
Yeah, how many times have I been telling you all week after week after week, Las Vegas is improving, Las Vegas is improving, they're going to start winning games, and, beating Denver is not easy, as many of you have found out. But they did. They played solid. They played, look at the yardage. They gained over 300 yards. They held Denver to 186 total, 32 rushing yards. They held them to 181 passing. That's not easy to do. They held Young to 49% passing, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. So this was a solid effort by Las Vegas. This team is a lot better than some of you think. You might look at their win-loss record, and I know they started out 3-0, and then they dropped 8 games in a row, and they were 3-8. But now I believe they're sitting at 6-8, and maybe some of you are going to start seeing that this team is for real.
All right. Mitch.
Well, just like the other game, there was no defense. In this game, there was no offense really for either side. I mean, the Denver averaged 3 yards a play, and Las Vegas averaged 5 yards a play, which, obviously was enough to, get them the win. But man, alive, this one here was. If you were an offensive football fan, this was not the game to watch. The turnover by Young definitely hurt Denver in this game. But it was a defensive battle all the way through, and Las Vegas was able to have enough breaks to get a few extra points to pull it out.
All right, Rich.
Yeah, I'm not going to pick on the offenses. I'm going to stick to, I think these are two really good defensive teams. I think both of these coaches have figured out how to play defense, and I was very impressed with the Raiders. And Dean is right. These teams are getting better. Vegas, Denver, and they're all improving. You look at the defensive points allowed for the season. 3 of the teams in that division are playing very good defense. I mean, Denver 252, Vegas 274, Pittsburgh 273. The Jets are 266. They're right in the Jet area where the Cardinals are, where the Raiders are. These teams are already playing high-level defense. They just don't know how to score yet. Vegas has scored 300 points. The Jets have scored 446. That's the difference with these teams, is they don't know how to play offense yet. So we'll see what happens next season, but excellent game for Vegas, and a good win.
All right. Next up, we have L.A. hosting Chicago. Another close game, separated only by 1 score, but L.A. came up a little bit short as they fall to Chicago, 22-16. Rich.
Another very good game, closer than I thought it was going to be. Again, both of them played very good defense. Steve actually surprised me with how well he played defensively. No turnovers. It was a clean game, and the Chargers had their chance. The game came down to the last minute. Chargers completed a big pass. They got to the 18 with 1:58 left, and they had a 3rd and 2 and a 4th and 1, and the Chicago defense won the game. That's the game. That's it right there. One play, and the Chargers won.
Dean.
Yeah, this is much closer than expected, and once again, Steve put in a good effort here and almost won the game. And as Rich just pointed out, the Chicago defense made the difference. But I believe the Chargers will still have a shot at winning that last spot. I guess it's going to be between them, Denver, and Las Vegas, most likely. Although I think New England believes they still are in it mathematically, but we'll see.
Mitch.
Yeah, Los Angeles was able to grind it, hold the ball, keep Chicago off the field. But similar to what we've seen, defense was there. Couldn't get anything going on the offensive side, even though they had the ball for 34 minutes. And that, as Rich said, it came down to that last bit, and Chicago stepped it up.
All right. Next game up, we have Houston. Another very close game, 1 possession victory. Houston hosting San Francisco, and Houston edged out San Francisco by a field goal, 23-20. Rich.
This was a good game. This was a back and forth. I want to say there was 4 or 5 lead changes in this game. Burrow and Mayfield both played very well. 1 turnover only led to 3 points, so that wasn't the difference. And again, this game came down to the final 2 drives in the game. 49ers drove it to the 38, had to punt. Oilers drove it to the 8, they kick a field goal, game over. This was a good game. This would have been a fun playoff game, a back and forth type of game. So Charlie played well. Mitch got lucky. That's all you can say, right?
All right. Dean.
Yeah, Houston survived my lead pipe curse, and they won this game. Although when I look at these stats, San Francisco had 334, Houston at 445. You'd expect winning by more than 3 points based on those stats. So the 49ers made the most of their opportunity and scored 20 points and just fell a little bit short. But, Charlie's
has held the ball a lot longer. That's why the yardage difference, by the way. They have the ball 13 more minutes.
Right. But Charlie's team is pretty solid this season. I wouldn't count them out in the playoffs. And I think they are going to make it.
All right. Coach, how'd your team do?
Yeah, I didn't like the fact that we had to have 16 third down attempts. That means I had to do something a little different on first and second down. So I always have to convert those third downs because that doesn't always work out so well for teams. But other than that, could tighten up the pass defense a little bit. He was able to get some chunk plays, not a ton, but some chunk plays, and keep things interesting. But a win's a win. We'll take it.
All right. Next game up, we have Washington hosting Minnesota, and the exact reverse of the previous game between home and visitor score, but Minnesota taking this one 23-20. Mitch.
Well, that Purple People Eater defense was able to pick off old Kyler Murray a couple of times and really bottle him up where they couldn't get anything really big or any big plays. Whether it was passing, they were efficient. Washington was passing the ball, but couldn't really break through. But those two interceptions definitely made a huge impact on the game. It really got things turned around. And I don't think anybody expected this to be a shootout, and it definitely was a tough fought game for both teams. And Minnesota, what's that, like 8 wins in a row, 9 wins in a row? They just find a way to win.
All right, Rich.
Yeah, this was another good game, another close game. Probably the type of game you would expect to see these two play in the playoffs. Mitch is right on the second interception was the killer. The first interception by Washington, it didn't amount to anything. It was a 3-and-out, I think, for the Vikings. But the second one, he got picked off near the end zone. Washington was going in for 7 before the half, and he got picked off. That was a big one. So there's your game right there. That 7 points right there cost Washington the game. But another good game. They both played well.
All right. Dean.
Yeah, I think what we can see here is that winning teams find a way to win and losing teams find a way to lose. And Minnesota, in this case, that I believe they're, on an 8 or 9 game winning streak, they found a way to win the game. And, turnovers can often make the difference. And they did. And at this time, Minnesota is still 1 game ahead of Chicago in the division. So they may be the first team in I don't know how many seasons that might prevent Chicago from winning their division again. Okay. That will be huge.
All right. Next game up, I would call this one the trash talking game of the week, as the two coaches were on the show last week, and they were definitely talking trash. So I guess there was some bragging rights. You have Philadelphia hosting Seattle, and I'll be damned, Seattle's coach actually did something, or at least the offense showed up. Not so sure about the defense and the yardage-wise, but Seattle ended up taking this one 34-21. Dean.
Yeah, you expect Mark is going to show up every week and say, go Hawks, and predict his team is going to win. But I called this one. I said that Seattle was going to win this. And because I didn't burden you by putting a lip-pipe curse in this, I just predicted that you're going to win. And the way you did it was you played solid, balanced offense and just simply outplayed overall Philadelphia, and you got the job done. And if I remember right, at parts of the game, it wasn't even as close as that final score indicates.
All right. Mitch.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that stood out to me is that, one, you had the big kick return, or punt return, which sets you up nicely. So that obviously kept your offensive stats down because you get to the short field, but that special teams helped set you up nicely a few times. But, even though you look at the stats and you see, Trubisky threw for 376 and all that kind of stuff, well, that's fine. But, your 5 sacks, kept making it, long yardage. And so, he had to chunk the ball down just to kind of keep things moving. So, the opportunistic defense, special teams, efficient offense, probably your best game of the year.
All right. Rich.
Mark, what can I tell you? Even a broken clock is right twice a day. This was a beautiful game for you. The bad Eagles showed up. Your defense, 5 sacks, as Mitch said, 167 on the ground, efficient in the air. Turnovers didn't play a role. It was beautiful. I mean, I try to do that again this week.
Yeah, I'm happy about that, but the 376 in passing yards, that is, we couldn't stop him through the air. We gave him, only had 39 yards rushing, but which is good, but that 376 in the air, that not good at all. Not good at all. So
it's not good, but you take away his running game, you force him to beat you by passing, and
yeah,
he
that's
didn't beat you
true.
Yeah, and those five sacks will disrupt the drive also. I mean, I don't know how they came. Those 5 sacks and 5 drives, that could disrupt 5 drives, so
that's true.
Even though he got some yards, if you're going to sack him 5+ times, that's going to do a lot for your defense.
Yeah. Next one up, or is it our last one? Oh, yep. Our last game of the week is our second overtime game of the week. A very close one. We have the New York Giants hosting and the Green Bay Packers, as the Giants took this one 20-14. Mitch.
Yeah, I'll say this. Well, one, I know we had the big over-under last week on the completions by Green Bay, and they were over. I think I said 8. They had 11. So congratulations, Shug. Glad to see you in double-digit completions. But all joking aside, Green Bay is one of those teams that I don't. Yeah, they've been some games where they've laid some massive goose eggs on the defensive side. But, typically, though, even though their offense is so inefficient, they typically keep games pretty close for the most part. And so this was no different. I mean, offensively, they struggled through the air. They turned to the running game. I mean, they ran the ball 48 times. Now, granted, they only averaged 3.6 yards a carry, but, I mean, you get 3 yards every time you hand the ball off. You run it 4 times in a row, that's a first down, right? Which is kind of what they did. They're literally 3 yards in a cloud of dust in this game. But, got it to overtime and gave themselves a chance. So, we got to help Shuggy figure out how to complete some passes. I think he'll be in much better shape.
All right. Rich.
Well, the Packers, that's all well and good, Mitch, but the Packers gave this game away. They were up 14-3 in the fourth quarter. They let the Giants come down and score a touchdown and the 2-point conversion. Then the Packers missed a field goal with 3 seconds left. That was like a 4-yard field goal. I don't know. It was a really short one. And then they fumble in overtime. So mistakes cost them this game. They had this game. I'm pretty sure Sean knows he got away with one. He was lucky this week.
All right. Dean.
Yeah, I had predicted the Packers are going to win this game, and obviously they should have with mistakes and turnovers, and so it's a tough loss, and I think Shogi doesn't want to be facing getting invited to the Sago Bowl, but win this weekend might prevent that, but we'll see.
Okay. So we have wrapped up the Week 14 games. Thank you for mentioning the Saco Bowl. Okay. So we're going to pivot on over to our middle topic. The middle topic, we're going to get like I said earlier, we're going to get a 2-for-1. The first thing we're going to start off with is the discussions that was going on about the stats or the player stats for the rookies coming into the league. I know that there's been some thoughts out there by Dean, so we're going to open this up and then let Dean get his thoughts in, and then we're gonna pass it over to Mitch and to Richard to see what they have to say as far as either concurring or disagreeing or give their thoughts on it. So Dean, let's go into a little bit more from your topic online this week regarding the players in the upcoming draft.
Yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover this in two parts. So first of all, I'm going to just touch on briefly how I look at players when I'm scouting the draft pool. It's by objective numbers. I'm looking for a certain total and certain rating in each category, and then when the players that fulfill those requirements, I list them on my draft board, and I'm sure many of you do a similar thing. In the 2044 draft, I had a pretty long list of players that were on my board, well over 100. The 2045 draft, I think it was like 97, 98 players that were on my draft board. Now, when I went through and did the same thing with this 2046 draft pool, and this is why I say it's a radical departure, much, much lower ratings overall, and many more players have more flaws and more weaknesses than they have in the past, although some of the players in the 2045 had that. There are 30
into the 2045 team.
What's
We're
that?
at 44, right? We're in 44 now. The next draft is 45.
Right.
You said 46.
Okay, 45 as opposed to 44, 43. So,
right. Yes.
So 43, I had well over 100 players on my board. 44, I had like 97, 98. And when I went through the same objective criteria, I mean, when I say criteria, I'm not saying like what are the 10 best quarterbacks on this list or whatever. Just looking at quarterbacks that are above a certain rating or cornerbacks or wide receivers, whatever the position. So it's objective criteria from one year to the next. I'm using the same criteria to decide who's on my board and which players are not on my board. That number went from 97 to 98, whatever it was, down to 32. And then I looked at how many of those players I would be willing to accept a 1.1 rating, 1 point lower than what I normally would look at, and how many more players I would add on the list, and I shaded those in yellow instead of green, and there were 42. So there are 74 players that I would even think of drafting in this pool. So the numbers objectively are lower. But here's why I think this is bad for the league. Now, I understand that some folks want this wider range between the lower and higher rated players, are thinking that if there are fewer so-called superstars, that's a term that a few people have used, in the pool, and if they think that this will make the first-round picks more valuable. I don't agree with that assessment. I don't think we make first-round picks more valuable by lowering the value of 2 through 7. Furthermore, I think some people think of this idea that if we have less depth in the rookie pool every year, and that some of the players are rated substantially lower, which some of these players are, that it's going to benefit the teams that are typically near the bottom and losing because they're going to get the fewer, rarer, better talent. Well, in theory, yes, but in reality, and let's keep it real here, what we know happens is that most of those teams that you would think are run by what you might consider like the bottom 5 GMs in the league, and I know some of you have considered me to be one of those teams routinely every year, and you know who the teams are, and I'm not going to mention any names, but they get criticized, and, James has been shouting from the mountaintops, don't trade your picks, and some teams are, and you notice I haven't done that this year. But those teams that typically are near the bottom are the ones that routinely trade their top-level draft picks away, and those picks just mysteriously end up in the hands of Chicago and the Jets and Washington and so on. So this idea that we're going to make things more competitive or whatever the case is by lowering substantially the rookie ratings, believe me, that's not going to challenge in any way the position that the Cardinals, the Jets, and the Redskins are in, because they'll manage to make the trades, and they always do, and get those picks. What I think you'll see happen, and I think maybe this might be the reason why some want to lower those ratings, because it has been said that our system kind of benefits those who maybe don't put as much focus or effort in being an effective GM, and that even the teams that aren't as well run in that manner can still field a fairly competitive roster because there's been a certain amount of depth and talent in the rookie pool every year and a certain number of players. What I think we'll see happening is if we continue to lower these ratings season after season after season, as we go in the direction of doing, we're going to see that the success of the top handful of teams, the top 3 or 4 teams, I think is only going to be consolidated because those teams are only going to continue to be just as effective at making trades, getting those top level picks that their teams normally don't, earn through the wins and losses, but they get them through trades. And we've seen that happen. And again, James or anyone else can say, stop trading your picks, but let's keep it real. Most of those teams in the bottom 7 or 8 teams of the league, year after year, keep trading those picks. So I think what's going to happen as a result of these ratings continue to lower, I think it's going to be bad for the league because you're going to see the parity that we've been talking about where just about every team in the league is competitive. I think you're going to see that decline. I think you're going to see a situation possibly 5 or 10 seasons from now where the talent is going to be much more unevenly distributed than it is now because of the lack of depth in the rookie pool and the fact that we're still going to see that those teams near the bottom are still going to trade their picks away. And I just want to make this position clear. This is why I'm against what I think is moving too fast and lowering these ratings. And I think maybe where the pool was last year is probably a good stopping point. We say, okay, let's stop lowering the ratings. Just keep it fairly consistent. I think this rookie pool, I know it's too late to change it. I'm not suggesting it be changed, but I think after this point, I'm advising that we don't go any lower because I think long term it will be bad for the league. We won't see the level of parity that has caused the league to be as successful as it is now if we keep lowering these rookie ratings beyond what they are in this draft. So I just wanted to make that clear and put that out there and then say this will be, after our discussion today, the last that I'm going to say in opining about this issue.
All right. Mitch, what do you want to add to that? You agree or disagree?
Wholeheartedly disagree with what Dean's talking about. No offense, but, I keep hearing all this about these massive decline in ratings and how this is the big departure from where the talent pool has been and all this and that and the other. And I pulled numbers for quarterbacks, halfbacks, wide receivers, DNs, linebackers, and cornerbacks. I looked at the 2045 draft pool that's coming up, and I compared it to the 2044 draft pool that we had last year. And if we look at potentials, right, so forget the actual, but just look at the potential ratings, combined for the positions. Let me kind of tell you how much difference there is in between the years. Quarterbacks in the 2044 draft pool, potential ratings average was 98.79% of max. So 98.79. The 2045 draft pool, 98.74% of max. That's a decline of 0.05 from the previous year. Halfbacks, 2044, average potentials percent to max was 98.9. 2045, 98.85. Again, a slight decrease of 0.05 on average for the draft pool as a whole. Wide receivers, 98.89% of max average in 2044, 98.77% of max in 45. So that's 0.12 difference between the years. In 2044, 98.7% average of max. 2045, 98.79. The ratings are actually higher in 2045 than in 2044 at the defensive end level on average. Linebackers, 98.72% of max in 44, 98.69 in 45, so a slight decrease of 0.03. And then cornerback, everybody's favorite position, 98.63% of max average draft pool in 44. In 45, 98.91. That is up 0.28 over last year. So in the positions that we tend to talk about the most, or the positions that seem to have the most impact on a lot of things going in this league, it's either slight declines on the average for the draft pool, or we're seeing increases on average per players in the draft pool. So I say all of that, and where the difference is, and why Dean is saying, I think where Dean's coming from about, yeah, I had 100 people on my draft board before, now I've only got 30. Well, I mean, it's pretty obvious. In 2044, there were 370 players, more than what the NFL has in the draft pool, for 2044. Okay, in 2045, the draft pool is 221. All right, so that's 150 players, difference. Okay, well, there are 126 draft positions, so 18 spots, seven rounds, so 126 positions to draft. So so when you look at the pool, right? The upper if you're drafting last season or 2044, you could go 10 rounds of drafts, which we only have 7, but you could fill out 10 rounds of the draft with the upper half of the talent with 370 people. In 2045, upper half talent would be 110 players. That'll get you through 6 rounds. So upper half of our talent pool, will fill 6 rounds of the draft before we start getting into the bottom, start getting into the third quartile of the talent in the pool. But to me, that seems to be a little bit more realistic than knowing the fact that you wouldn't get into even the third quartile talent in our previous pools until the 10th round of the draft, which means we're going to have a ton of free agents that or were draftable players in previous years. So, I think the biggest change is not the ratings themselves. It's the size of the draft pool, which to me is more realistic compared to the number of draft positions that we have for an 18-team league. So that's my thoughts on it. So, Rich, I'll see if you got any thoughts.
I have no thoughts on those numbers. I can't get in the weeds on those numbers because I don't care about that. But as a global policy, Dean is right and Dean is wrong. Where he's right is when the players are very close together, it does allow the bottom teams to stay reasonably competitive, even while they make bad draft picks and make bad trades. They just see, because there's so much talent out there that they really can't bottom out. So that's maybe some people think that's a good thing. But so that's by keeping the players close, that keeps the worst team in the league in the hunt. We've had open teams who didn't get destroyed, and they just they have plenty of talent. So that's that part where Dean is right about that. But do we want that though? See, that's where this is a league. The coaches should have a conversation. Do we really want that though? Because the first pick in the draft sometimes is no better than the 5th pick in the draft. Or the 11th pick in the draft. How often have I gotten emails from coaches saying, "Oh, I drafted 15th and I got the best defensive tackle in the draft," or I got the player I wanted in the 2nd round, 3rd pick. That shouldn't happen. So Dean's wrong about the fact that if we lower, slightly lower, the other players below the top 10, 20, whatever, it does increase the value of the first round. And that does put a responsibility on every coach to be smarter with his draft picks. Dean is also right where, let's be real, coaches are going to be coaches. But why? Why can't they be smarter? I mean, how many seasons do you need in the league to not give away your first round pick for nothing, or to give it away, pennies on the dollar? We're all adults here. I mean, some of these guys have been in the league 5, 10, 20 seasons. There's no reason why teams can't make smart deals. And if you know the first round picks, the top 8 picks in the draft are the top 8 players, well, then be smart about your draft picks. And also be smart about when you trade them. I mean, sometimes these trades are all about timing. I mean, do you trade a draft pick 24 hours before the draft, or do you trade the draft pick 4 months before the draft? I mean, you also have to know who you are as a coach. If you know you're not a playoff team, why are you sending your draft picks away? You don't even know what your draft slot is right today, but some teams will trade the draft picks away. So, I mean, that's a league discussion that we should all have. And what kind of a league do we want? Do we want the coaches to be more responsible and to be, and that's why Dean's right. The player ratings attributes become wider. It could make the Jets and the Cardinals and the Oilers and whoever, Jerry, they might become even better. But the only way they become better is if the other teams are feeding them. So stop feeding them. So I don't know what kind of league you want. I mean, I and Dean, you're right about the fact that Charlie, I do have Charlie's ear, but I never told him to do this. Charlie, the only thing I ever tell Charlie, I want that draft out earlier, and to get it out to you guys even before. I really want it out like week 4 of the season. I'd like it out. And for whatever reason, he can't do it. He's busy, whatever. It takes time to do it. But that's the only thing I ever tell him. I mean, personally, I'd rather see slightly wider attributes because it just you want to see the difference between cornerback number 1 and cornerback number 5. I don't know about you guys, but I see every team has got 83 cornerbacks. They got 5 or 6 of them. Go look at the Cardinals. Go look at the Jets. Go look at all these teams, every team. You all have 82, 83 cornerbacks. You all have 83, 84 wide receivers. There's not enough diversity in the player attributes. It should be more wide. I'm not talking about 78 speed, 83 speed. I'm not talking about 1999 season. And I'll be the first one to admit, back when I was coaching in the early days of this league, I was the beneficiary of a league that had very wide player attributes, and I basically, through coaching and GMing, dominated the league because I had the best team, and I was doing things coaching that others weren't doing, and there were times when I could not be beat. And that's really not good for the league either. I agree with Dean in that. You don't want it to get to the point where you don't have a chance to win. You don't want that. You don't want to go back to 2001 season, 2002 season. That's not fun either. But the way it is with these players so close to each other right now, that's not fun either. Because guys like Mitch, who are putting in the work, or Justin or Thomas or whoever, it's frustrating to do all that work, only knowing that the game is going to be a random game anyway because everyone's got the same exact team. That's not fun either. You want to have a little diversity in these teams. So there does need to be some changes to this, and maybe Charlie's doing that. Mitch's data says no, but maybe over time it is happening, and that's fine. But I think the league as a whole should decide what they want. Do you want to cater to the guy who doesn't do anything, or do you want to cater to the guys who are actually participating? So that's the only my only comments about the draft. Back to you, Mark.
Okay. Very informative, very in-depth. As I was listening to you guys talk, I kind of chuckled at the one comment about giving away the picks, and it just came back about that. Yes, I gave away a pick at the trade deadline. It's like, well,
I didn't say any names.
I didn't say no. Look. What'd you say? We're all adults here. So I did what I thought I got a couple more picks out of it. Some say, yeah, it was good. Some say, no, it wasn't, so it's.
Mark, can I just add on that, your trade? The only thing your trade may turn out okay because New England could lose out and be the 5th pick in the draft. Justin will get the 1st pick. You're going to get a really good player, not much worse than the player Justin gets, perhaps, and you'll get the 2nd and 3rd pick. That's fine. So it's not going to be a terrible trade. But here's where it is a terrible trade. If you had made the trade 24 hours before the draft and you posted on the forum to the other 17 teams that you were shopping this pick, you would have gotten a better return, a much better return. You probably would have had 2 first-round picks coming your way and a 2nd and a 3rd and a 4th and a 5th. You would have gotten a much better package. It's all about timing. Your timing for that trade was terrible, especially when you don't know where it's going to land. Did you think it was going to be the first-round pick in the draft? You should have waited. You should have waited to see what your pick was. Justin predicted it would be the first pick in the draft. So that's where not a terrible trade. It just could have been an absolute winner for you.
Could have been further down the line.
Yes.
Good to know. I will definitely, I'm going to write that down on my Super Squirrel notebook here. All right. So
that's
we
all
are
about timing.
Yep. So we're going to do a quick pivot over to the playoff race that was a very in-depth topic that we wanted to get to. And I said, you can get you guys a 2-for-1. So we don't want to keep you too long. So as we are going into week 15, quick rundown of the standings we have over on the AFC side. We have New York sitting at 13-1, New England sitting at 6-8, Indy sitting at 5-9, Jacksonville at 4-10. Over on the AFC in the West, we have Houston at 10-4, Pittsburgh 10-4, LA 6-8, Vegas 6-8, and Denver at 6-8. Over on the NFC side, we have Washington at 9-5, New York at 6-8, Philly at 5-9, and Atlanta at 5-9. In the West, we have Minnesota at 11-3, Chicago 10-4, San Francisco 7-7, Green Bay 4-10, and Seattle 3-11. So, as we've done before, we're going to have Dean do a quick talk about the AFC side, Mitch do a quick check on the NFC side, and then we're going to have Rich tie a bow around it. So we're going to try to run through this real quick. So, Dean, what do you see going on over on the AFC?
Well, it's clear that the Jets are going to win their division and be the number 1 seed. It's clear that the 2nd and 3rd seeds are going to be Houston and Pittsburgh, and whichever of those wins the division is number 2, and whichever one doesn't is the 3rd seed. But then the interesting part is we have a 4-way race now, 4 teams, New England, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, Denver, all 6-8, and are competing for that last playoff spot. And I would say look out for Las Vegas to emerge from that group and win that last spot. You look at the win streak; they have a 3-game winning streak. They're the hottest of those 4 teams. But it's possible if they lose one of their last 2 games that one of those other teams could go 2-0 and win that spot. And you might have more than one of those teams finish at 8-8 and it get determined by a tiebreaker. But that's a lot of teams that are still in contention in the AFC, where it's probably less clear in the NFC. I mean, more clear in the NFC what's going to happen. But that's what I see in the AFC.
Mitch, what do you see over on the NFC?
Well, who would have thought that the NFC playoff race would run through Green Bay? And that's exactly what is happening with San Francisco traveling to Green Bay this week. If Green Bay can pull the upset and knock off San Francisco, and then the Giants knock off Jacksonville at home this week, that puts us in a very interesting Week 16 battle between the Giants and the 49ers for that last playoff spot. So, who knows how this is going to turn up. you look, you think, well, gosh, San Francisco, surely they'll knock off Green Bay, right? Well, you know what? Green Bay, they've won 4 games this year. All 4 games have been at home, and they're at home this week against San Francisco. So, interesting, I would say. But it's going to come down to that. It's going to come down to those two, and it could become very interesting next week, depending on how that Jacksonville Giants game and Green Bay San Francisco game goes. Everything else has been decided, other than Minnesota and Chicago. We could see some flip flopping if Minnesota stumbles here, but as far as that last playoff spot goes, it'll be very interesting on that. So that's what I got, Mark.
All right, Rich. Let's let you tie a bow on it. You got both of them.
We need 2 spots here. Yeah, I mean, that AFC, the 6 and 8 teams, they all have killer schedules. Everyone, I mean, Denver's got Houston and LA. Vegas has got New England and Houston. LA's got Pittsburgh and Denver. Every team has got hard, difficult games. I have no idea who's coming out of that. That is just whatever I don't know who has the tiebreakers. So I have no idea who's going to win that last spot. That's going to be a kind of a fun last week. The NFC's finished after this week. San Francisco's going to beat Green Bay, and we're done. So those are the 4. And the Houston, Pittsburgh, who's going to get that home field is important. I'm sure Mitch realized. So Mitch is going to be playing out hard for the last 2 games if anyone's got him on his schedule. So it's going to be interesting. I have no idea who's going to come out of the AFC, though.
Yeah, the NFC is situation. That was a nice story, Mitch, but that's going to be doubly finished because Jacksonville is going to beat the Giants this weekend. So that isn't even going to be in play, regardless of what happens in the game between Green Bay and San Francisco.
The only hiccup in this AFC is if Mitch loses this week to Denver, then Mitch maybe, I don't know, he can answer that, may not care about Week 16, and that means Vegas could win out. They could beat New England, knock New England out, and then beat Houston and be 8-8 and make the playoffs. So I guess this week is going to be important for everyone in that pile of teams. So we'll see. Should be fun.
Okay. A lot of good information there. I say this one here, I really enjoy hearing, Mitch and Dean, and then you throw Rich in there as well, getting everyone's different takes on it. Makes a lot of sense out of it and makes it very entertaining. So we're going to move over to our last segment as we're getting close to our time. We're going to go through the Week 15 games, and as I talked in the previous segment, there's going to be some very interesting games as we come down to the wire. Starting off with the first game of Week 15, we have the New York Jets going in to go play Philly. They are giving the Jets 13.5. We're going to start this one with Rich.
I'm going to take the Eagles only because the Jets have nothing to play for. It really doesn't matter. The Jets have the 1 seed locked up. They've got the home field in the league, I think, pretty much wrapped up. I don't know. Did the Jets play Minnesota this year? If they did, they probably won, and so that means the Jets have got the 1. They've got home field throughout. So this game is meaningless. I expect maybe they'll even rest some players. And in Philadelphia, give me the Eagles and those points.
All right. Dean.
Yeah, I think Rich is generally right on what he said, but, without saying the cliche that's going to cause you to go ding, ding on the thing, the Jets can win games when they're not even trying to win. The Jets are still going to win this game.
Mitch.
Jets win, but it'll be closer than the spread.
All right. I'll jump in here as well. I'll go with the Jets this week. Real simple. Next one, we have Washington hosting the Colts. They are giving the Redskins 10.5. Dean.
Simple. Washington wins at home.
All right. Mitch.
Same. I think Washington's going to win this.
Rich.
Yeah, Washington will win this game because they have to figure something out before these playoffs. They've been inconsistent all year. I think Jerry wants to have a couple of good games here going into the playoffs, being the 2 seed. So Washington, that'll take out the Colts for the season.
All right. I'll go at Washington as well. Next game up, very close one in the spread. We have the Raiders hosting the Patriots. They're playing in Vegas, and they are giving the Raiders 3.5. Mitch, you're up.
Well, it depends on how many PPPs the Patriots send in this week. You know, it took them 3, I think, to beat Atlanta or something like that. But I don't know. I'll take the Raiders. All
right. Rich.
I'll take the Raiders because they have given up 111 less points on the season. Give me the team who can play defense at home. He covers, he wins.
Dean.
Yeah, I think I've been promoting this team almost as much as Mitch from us, Minnesota. But, yeah, I'm taking the Raiders here. And I'm not only picking the Raiders, I'm putting a lead pipe lock on it.
All right. I'm going to go with the Raiders. I need them to win this game because I have New England's pick, and I'm pushing my chips in on this one for the Raiders to win this week. Sorry, Mox. I got to get a good pick. Sorry. Next,
you putting a lead pipe lock on this also?
Yep, I'm putting the lead pipe lock on this one also with the Raiders.
Can I change my pick now?
Go for it.
No, I'm kidding.
All right, next one up, we have the Giants hosting Jacksonville. They are giving the Giants 4.
James did that and it turned out to be wrong. He changed his pick after I put the lead pipe lock on it, and he turned out to be wrong. Remember that?
Mm-hmm. Yep, they're giving the Giants 4.5 on this one. Rich.
I'll take the Giants. They have something to play for. Somehow, some way, Sean's going to pull this game out.
Dean.
I'm disagreeing. I'm saying that Matt's going to put together a good game plan here and win this game on the road. And I think he has motivation to want to do it, and we'll do it. Jacksonville wins.
Mitch.
Giants.
Giants also. Next one up.
Here. Wow.
This one I think is going to be interesting to hear what you guys have to say. There's the we have the Chargers hosting the Steelers. They are giving the Steelers 6.5. Dean.
Pittsburgh is very good, but I think they've lost a bit of momentum lately, so I'm picking the Chargers to win at home.
Ooh, okay. Mitch.
I'm not sure who Pittsburgh's gonna play at quarterback. I mean, they won by 2 touchdowns with their third stringer last week, so I don't know if it really matters. So I'm gonna take Pittsburgh.
Rich.
Yeah, I'm going to take Pittsburgh too. I agree. The luster is off Pittsburgh a little bit, but the Chargers are so inconsistent. I mean, some weeks they play toe to toe with the Cardinals, and then they have other weeks where they don't show up. So I'm going to take the team who's shown up every week. Give me the Steelers.
All right. I'm going to call for the upset this week. I think the Chargers are going to take this one. It's getting down to the wire. He's in the fight for a playoff spot. He went to the championship. He was, gone deep into the playoffs. I think that might have him a bit more focused to get that last playoff spot. So I'm going to go against the grain and take the Chargers this week.
Yeah, he's tanking, so that means he's going to win.
Yeah, pretty much. Next game up, we have the Oilers taking on the Broncos. They are giving the Oilers 7.5. Rich.
I am going to take the Oilers because Denver is another one of those teams that seems to have hit a bit of a wall. I think he's lost 3 out of 4. I expect the game to be close. I don't really think Houston will cover this 7.5, but I do think he'll find a way to win.
All right. Dean.
Yeah, I think after the tough loss to the Raiders last week, I think Brian is going to be working overtime to make a difference here. And I think Denver is going to go into Houston and pull off an upset.
Ooh. Mitch, what you got for your boys this week?
Houston's going to win because we have to. So Houston.
All right. Next game up, we have
What are
Minnesota.
you calling for?
Oh, I'm going to take the Oilers. I think Mitch is on a mission. He came up short last.
A lot of coaches on a mission.
See, the reason my logic behind it is he came up short last year, and you could clearly tell that it really bugged him. So this year is going to be like, he's taking that momentum and using that to go forward. If you guys remember early on in the season, he was out. He was locked in the bunker. So, he's still doing some work down the bunker, and he wants to get that bitter taste out of his mouth. So, anywho, next one up, we have Minnesota taking on Atlanta. They are giving the Vikings 10.5. Mitch.
You know the Vikings are going to win this. It's the Vikings. Go with the purple.
All right. Rich.
You have to take Minnesota. There's too much on this game for Minnesota. They want the division. They also want the 1 seed in the NFC. So Minnesota.
All right. Dean.
I think you could argue that Minnesota is the best team in the league. I mean, yeah, they're 11-3, and the Jets are 13-1. But Minnesota lost 2 close upsets to the 49ers. They could be 13-1 otherwise. They're carrying 8-game winning streak. I'm going to sound like Mitch in saying this, but, we're just going to be honored to take the field with this team this weekend at Minnesota.
I want to pick Atlanta because, as I said last season, misery loves company. If they can't go to the playoffs, they're going to make sure they knock everyone else out in the process. But I think Minnesota is going to pull this one off. So I'm going with the Vikings. Last 2 games, we have Seattle hosting Chicago. They are giving Chicago 17.5. Rich.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mark, but I think you've had your blind squirrel finds a nut moment. I think Chicago easily wins this game. Lock of the week. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't see it.
Dean.
I think this game is going to be closer than people expect. And I'm not going to predict a Seattle win, but Chicago is definitely not going to cover the spread. There's going to be a very close game. Chicago probably ekes it out.
Mitch.
Yeah, I agree. I think the spread's at 17.5. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah, so I think Chicago wins, but I think Seattle keeps it to at least 17.
You're so generous.
See, I wish, maybe I should have had, should have had James on here, and I can get another trash talking session going, because clearly that trash talking session from last week brought something out that has some guys turning heads. So, but anywho, really don't need it. I know he's out there listening, so he'll probably drop something in my email talking more trash. So, anywho, I got to go with the boys. Rain or shine, go Hawks. Last game up, we have the game that was mentioned earlier in the second segment. Road to the playoffs are going through Green Bay, as we have the Packers hosting the 49ers. They are giving the 49ers 7.5. We're going to wrap this pick off with Mitch.
I've been waiting for this one. You know what? I think Chuggy is going to complete 12 passes this week, and they're going to pull the upset and win at home, creating complete chaos across the league in Week 16. And so I'm going with Green Bay, lead pipe lock.
All right.
Wow.
Rich.
49ers will win this game, and that's that.
Dean.
Mark, this is going to be another chance for you to do a Detroit City Distillery promotion here, but I'm going to say that Charlie and the 49ers are on a mission. And Charlie will leave no doubt about having to fight for that playoff spot against the Giants in Week 16. So the 49ers will win this game, just as Rich said.
Okay. I got to go along with you guys as well. We're going to go with the 49ers to win this game. So I want them to keep the Packers in the basement with me. You know, misery loves company. All right, we're going to wrap this one up. We're going to run through the table one more time. Definitely, before we get to the final words, I want to thank the commish for coming on to the show this week and giving us his thoughts and insights, and personally thank him for what he's been doing along with Charlie for the league, and wish you a continued success and keep up the good work. So,
my pleasure, Mark. Always good to be here.
All right, so as we go around the table one last time, we're going to let our guest lead off. Your final words.
My final word is a little shout out to one of our coaches, Justin, who provided me with league files from the 2009, 2010, 2011 season to help me fill in the game stats on the website. I very much appreciate that from Justin. That was very nice of him to dig those out for me, because nobody else could have dug them out since no one else was here. So thank you to Justin.
All right. Dean.
Yeah, I'll just say we have some interesting games coming up this weekend, especially the ones involving those 4 teams in the AFC that are competing for that last playoff spot. So it'll be interesting what happens, and we'll be able to watch at least a couple of those games on Discord on Friday night.
Okay. Mitch, any final words for you? Take us home.
Yeah, as Dean said, would love to get some of these games that are, Hallmark games for the week available for us to watch Friday night on Friday Night Light. So get those PPPs in if a little early, if you can. If not, we understand if you got to put a little extra time into those. But come join us regardless. Lots of fun on Friday nights. If you haven't been on Friday Night Lights yet, and you think our bickering and bantering back and forth is fun, you ought to listen to us live on Friday nights. It's even better. But anyway, other than that, everybody, I think the only thing left now is let's get it.